Hi there VC, it's Steve Whitty here with another recent find video. Hope everybody is good and has had a good week and enjoying the weekend. I've certainly been hectic this week, but it's still good, all's good in my world, and I hope it's the same with you. This is another recent listens video, recent listens number 13 I believe, a real hodgepodge of albums. I've got 14 albums to share. I'll try and not make it as long as last week. Though, do thank everyone who's watched and has given comments. And on the back recently, I've had a few more new subscribers, which is always very pleasing. So, without further ado, first album I'm going to show you is a compilation. This is Shaking All Over, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. Now, this comp was released in 1971. Now, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates are often sort of overlooked in the history of British rock music, so they predate the Beatles a little bit. Johnny Kidd was born Frederick Heath, and I don't think his contribution to British music should be underestimated. The hits he had, Please Don't Touch, Shaking All Over, and I'll Never Get Over You. In fact, Shaking All Over, most of you might know it from Who covering it. It's just a great song, and even though they never had too many hits, they were always a popular attraction. Johnny Kidd could entertain, put on a live show. They were a very good live act, apparently. Sadly, Johnny Kidd died in a car crash 7th of October 1966. Also in that car was Nick Simpler, who went on to become the original bass player in Deep Purple. Pirates did carry on after Johnny Kidd, and in fact made some really good albums on their own. I think supported AC/DC in the 70s in the UK. So Johnny Kidd and the Pirates is certainly an act. If you've come across an album or their record of theirs, definitely worth checking out. Another comp I picked up recently is Roy Orbison's The All-Time Greatest Hits of Roy Orbison. This was released in 1972. This is an original on the Monument label. And it, as it says, it contains all the hits. We all know what a great voice Roy Orbison had. There he is. Open up the... And sort of released probably primarily because his career was in a slump. In the 70s, I know he'd had a few tragic events in his life. I mean, he carried on working, but some of the things he appeared, especially on the television in the UK, and you just think now, how could he go so low? But I suppose all he could do, I suppose, was tour, play the hits, and people wanted to listen to him. And rightly before he died, he got the sort of re-evaluation, recognition that he deserved. Next, Take It Easy with the Walker Brothers. This was their debut album, released in 1965. This is released on the Philips label. It is on there. Somebody had their name tag on it and ripped it off. It's on the Black Philips label. Now, everyone knows obviously the Walker Brothers. Scott Walker, we just recently lost, and John passed away a few years back. Big song on here is Make It Easy on Yourself, which was a number one. I mean, this album is pretty standard 60s fare, a mixture of covers. Here Comes the Night springs to mind, and Dancing in the Street, and some self-penned songs. An album of its time, I think it's truly outstanding about it. So, but it's worth having if you haven't listened to it. Now, the next album is The Story of Genesis. Now, this was a Japanese compilation released in 1978, and yes, apparently from looking up at Discogs, you can see the Japanese writing there. That it did have an obi strip, so it's my first Japanese pressing. which I was pleased about. And it was the property of, believe it or not, Coventry Public Libraries. How they got hold of a copy of an OB Best of Genesis, I don't know. And basically, this is the Best of Genesis from 70 to 1978. So you start off with The Knife, and you work your way through Musical Box, Watch of the Sky, Supper Ready takes up side 2, Land Lies Down on Broadway, Dancing the Volcano, Squonk, Ripples, 11 Furlong Mar, Your Own Special Way, Burning Rope, and Follow You, Follow Me. Let's see if we get this. Yeah. So you've got here the lyric sheet as well. So the lyrics in front are in English. Open it up, we'll turn it round. It's got the lyrics in Japanese. So rather pleased to have that. It's a bit of a curio. Obviously, the one thing that is missing is the OB strip, but I checked on Discogs, it did have one. And it was only, and this album was only ever released in Japan. Next few records are going to focus on one band. You know what? I'll put that down there. The band is Kiss. So this is Dressed to Kill, their third album, released in 1975. And it was produced by Neil Bogart, the label president, label owner. And the only reason he got to produce the album was the band were that short, the label was that short of cash, they couldn't afford to hire a producer. This album's very short. It just touches over 30 minutes. It does contain Rock and Roll All Night, Come On and Love Me, She, which are all sort of like staples, Rock Bottom, all sort of staples of what the live act, and obviously they featured on Alive. And this album, I think this, in hindsight, this album sounds very weak, and it's mainly because I think the production's weak. And Alive sort of proved that when it came out, and particularly on Come On and Love Me. And when I first heard that song on Alive, then when I heard the version on here, and somebody gave me a tape of this album, it was like, it was chalk and cheese. It's not about album. It's a good pop rock record, but I think if we carried on making albums like that, the Kiss that we all know and love wouldn't have happened. Another Kiss album I picked up was Unmasked, released in 1980. This is the band's 8th album, and this was the first album that I ever brought to Kiss. I brought when it first came out in 1980. Don't know where that copy's gone now. The band was starting to slump at this point, and you can see although Peter Criss is on the album, he's featured on the cover of the album. Like Dynasty, he didn't actually play on the album. Anton Fig did. And more tellingly, this album, he didn't put any vocals on the album, which was the first. In fact, his last appearance with the band was on the video for the single Shandy, and where pretty much he'd obviously just been told, or he was told afterwards, that his services were no longer required. This was the first album not to go platinum in the States since prior to Destroyer. However, the album did do well in Europe and Australia, which probably prompted Kiss to actually tour the UK, Europe for the first time in 5 years. My view on this album is it's actually quite a good album. Okay, it was my first album, so a Kiss album, but there are some good songs on it, particularly Ace Frehley's songs, Talk to Me and Torpedo Girl. You've got Is That You's a great song, even though it's a cover. You're All That I Want, another good song. It's a good pop rock album, actually. A bit like Dressed to Kill. I think sometimes it gets lost in comparison to other albums, and you try and compare that to Destroy It, you can't. But as an album on its own, it does stand out. Now, the big thing I picked up recently were the 4 solo albums. So I'm going to go through each album in the catalogue number. So the first album on catalogue number is Gene Simmons. All 4 albums were released on the 18th of September 1978. All the albums, this one placed the highest in the US charts. And this album sort of like featured, it was, Gene Simmons had a chance to have a little play around. It featured everything: choir, string arrangements, pop, funk, disco, rock and roll and hard rock. Radioactive was the single on here. Musicians that featured on the album included Joe Perry, Rick Nielsen, Helen Reddy, Cher, Donna Summer, Janis Ian. Now, what I was so pleased about is, let me get the album. Each album, these American pressings I've got here. So each album has got, see the image of, you've got the image of Gene there on the album. But what was most pleasing about this album, in fact all the albums, is you've got, the inner sleeve's a bit worn, so I've kept that separate. I think the biggest fun and games I'm going to have is putting these back in. Yeah, it's a good idea. Also, in this album, you got the merchandising, which Kiss are well known for. So you could got all this stuff, and I've still got the thing attached to it. But they also, this might be a bit more difficult to put out. Let me put this back in like so. Get the poster. Now, how the poster pans out, you can tell it's been, I think this has been on the wall. Let's get this right. There you go. And you can see it sort of hooks up. So there's a poster in each one, and you hook them up together. I think this has been put together because I think there's a little tear in this album here. So, clever piece of marketing from the band. So the second album by catalogue number is Ace Frehley. This was the highest selling of the solo albums, and that's partly on the back of New York Groove being being the biggest hit that was taken. This is very much a meat and potatoes hard rocking record, which is very much Ace. And I won't get all the gubbins out, but if I can find the poster, I've got a poster for him somewhere. This is Ace's poster. He's got slightly curlier hair than probably what's on the cover. Again, it's got all the so you've got get all the Ace's stuff as well. That's what you could have got from Ace. And you follow it up with Peter Criss. Now this album was the lowest charting of the albums. The criticism, I think, levelled at this album was it lacked the hooks, and the reviews were quite negative. It's quite a soft rock album, and which it's. I mean, I think the band on their albums were allowed to do what they wanted to do, and this is very much what Peter Criss was into, and I think he suffered in comparison, even though he provided the vocals on some of the biggest songs. And here's his poster there. For some reason, because when it came to writing his songs, they lacked one big thing that his album has that the others don't have is this, which is sort of like a breakdown of who plays on the album. And then finally, you got Paul Stanley. It's his album. This is the only album to feature all original songs. It's probably the most Kiss sounding album of the four. Tonight You Belong to Me, probably my favourite track on here. And then that's careful. That's Paul Stanley's poster. So, well, as I said, all the posters, you linked them up if you wanted to put them up on your wall, and no doubt there's plenty of copies of the solo albums that are missing posters because they've been on the wall, got trashed and whatever. So I was quite lucky to pick those up for what they were. Now, for those that are interested, my ranking of the solo albums are as follows. In fourth place, Peter Criss. Sorry about that. I know there are quite a few people who defend Peter Criss. I know James Griffiths, and I think I got involved in an argument with somebody over the validity of Peter Criss's musicianship. 3, it would be Gene Simmons. 2, Paul Stanley, and 1's Ace Frehley's. It by far was the best album. Moving on from Kiss, level 42, World Machine, 1985, the band's 6th album. The album that sort of brought their international breakthrough, and also the transforming from their jazz funk roots into more of a funky pop band. The big breakout hit single was Something About You, which was a biggest hit at the time in the UK, and sort of went in the and became a hit single in the US as well. The album reached number 3 in the UK, 18 in the US. That shift towards the pop sort of emulating and running in the family, and it's very easy to sort of dismiss Level 42 as a band that's sort of like 80s yuppie type music, but at the peak they were really good. This is actually a good album, and Something About You is a really class single. Storming through, we got Sunburst Finish. This is the third Bebop Deluxe album released in 1976. I'm not going to say too much about it. This is an upgrade, and the reason it's an upgrade, I finally found a copy with the correct cover. The copy I have at home, I already have, was actually housed in the Modern Music album cover. The joys of searching for a pound bin. Ships in the Night was the big hit single, but it also marked the production debut of John Leckie, who went on to do the Stone Roses, amongst others. If you want to know more about Sunburst Finish, I did do a Bebop Deluxe video about a year and a half ago. couple of albums to go. This is David Bowie's Stage, released in 1978, recorded on his Isola 2 tour, and the recordings taken from dates in Philadelphia, Providence and Boston between April and May 1978. This is, to me, a better live album than David Live. It sounds a bit more relaxed. Whether Bowie was more happy, certainly was coming off the drugs, doing the Berlin period. The band sounded really good on this. A lot of stuff features from Low and Heroes. And the playing, as I say, that they managed to really capture the live sound from those albums really well. But it's a mixture of everything. You've got Hang On To Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, 5 Years, Soul of Star. Then it moves on to Station Fame, TVC 15, Side 2, Wasaura, Speed of Life, Art Decade, Sense of Doubt, Breaking Glass. Then Side 2, Heroes, What in the World, Blackout and Beauty and the Beast. So I say, after this, of all these albums, of the 70s live album, this is by far the best one. The one, you should seek out first if you haven't listened to it. And the final album is The Cult's Electric, released in 1987, which marked a big change in their style from their gothic rock style to more traditional hard rock style. Now, the album ended up being produced by Rick Rubin, but originally it was being recorded by Steve Brown over in England, and halfway through the recording, the band were unhappy with it, so found Rubin, and who just did the sound. I think the band were quite happy in the end with Rubin, but this is just a stonking album. When I first heard Love Removal Machine, which was the lead single of this album, I was just like, whoa. It's just like total 180 degrees flip. You got Wildflower on here, Little Devils, another anthemic single of theirs. There is a version of Born to Be Wild on there, but I think everybody was doing a cover of Born to Be Wild at this point. Even Zodiac Mindwarp did one. Outlaw, just a cracking album. Biggest selling album for the band in the UK. The Steve Brown sessions ended up being released. They released this as Electric Peace, because the original album was going to be called Peace, and that's what the sessions with Steve Brown the album was going to be called. Excuse me. So yeah, I think most people in the VC rock fans will have this album or know of this album, and what a great album it is. So there you go. That's the 14 albums done and dusted. As I said, I've had a bit of a hike in subscribers, so big thank you. I do appreciate it. It's my humble little videos where you can probably gather. I open the camera up, I just speak. You get the warts and all. I just can't be bothered to sort of like edit and all that. So really big thank you to everyone. It is appreciated on my part. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, click on the subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs down, love the interaction. Please feel free to leave a comment. I will get back to you. It may be a day or so, but I do get back to you. So whatever you're doing today, enjoy the rest of your weekend, VC. And until the next time, keep spinning. More importantly, keep smiling.